Half an hour later. Lin Chia looked at the mountain of skewers in front of Jialon and fell silent. Little girl, want some more? Merlin smiled at Jialon, reached into the magic circle, and several more plates of lamb appeared on the table. Standing there in his chef's outfit, his tall and imposing figure in Jialon's eyes no longer seemed like the great god of magic, but rather the god of food who presided over earthly cuisine. I really can't eat anymore. Jialon sat on the ground contentedly, patting her round belly and letting out a long breath. Merlin looked up at the red moon, waved his hand to disperse the grill and chef's outfit, and put back on his deep blue magic robe before saying to the two, "It's getting late, let's rest here for today." Hearing these words, Lin Chia was stunned. He looked up at the chaotic sky where day and night didn't alternate and asked puzzledly, "Lord Merlin, we don't need to rest." It had only been 6 or 7 hours since they entered Takamagara, and before that they had rested long enough in the whale's belly. After coming here they had been sitting in the carriage the whole time, so there was really no fatigue to speak of. "No, you need rest," Merlin said firmly. "When you wake up, it will be time to receive the gift I've prepared for you. You must have your mental state at its peak." Lin Chia pondered this, but his curiosity grew stronger. "Lord Merlin, what exactly is this gift you've prepared for me?" "You'll know tomorrow." Merlin raised his staff and lightly tapped the ground. A brilliant magic circle instantly spread out, and moments later the earth beneath their feet began to flow like water, rising into the air and weaving together to form a simple palace. This palace was much simpler compared to the palaces of Takamagara, but it was more than enough to accommodate 3 people. Warm light streamed through the palace windows, and inside there were sofas, beds, rugs, and even a long table set with Western tableware and candlelight. Lin Chia's mouth couldn't help but drop open. This ability was far superior to a certain fatty's free space. Definitely an essential skill for traveling. 3 rooms, 1 for each. Of course, if you two want to share a room, I can pretend not to notice. Merlin's gaze swept over the two, a smile appearing at the corners of his mouth, as he walked into the palace without looking back, returning to the rightmost room. Lin Chia stood outside the palace, cleared his throat lightly, and just as he turned his head to say something to Jialon, she had already run back to the central room with a bright red face. Bang! Jialon slammed the door shut. Seeing this, Lin Chia let out a slight sigh of relief, but for some reason, felt an inexplicable disappointment in his heart. He cast aside the complicated thoughts in his mind and strode directly toward the leftmost room. Before he could close the door, there was a sudden sound as the central room's door burst open, and Jialon rushed out carrying bedding, running straight into Lin Chia's room. Lin Chia stood at the doorway, feeling as if a blue shadow had just flashed past, followed by wafts of fragrance entering his nostrils. He stood there dazed. After a good while he came to his senses and turned to look at Jialon, who was standing by the bed holding the bedding, just as he was about to say something. "Don't misunderstand." Jialon hugged the bedding, her cheeks flushed red as she spoke. I just don't dare sleep alone in this place full of dismembered limbs and corpses. You take the bed, I'll sleep on the floor, I won't disturb your rest. Please don't make me leave." Jialon's voice grew quieter and quieter. She turned her head aside, her cheeks as red as ripe apples. Lin Chia looked at Jialon's flickering eyes and smiled helplessly, walking up to her and taking the bedding from her hands. Seeing this, Jialon lowered her head slightly, her lips involuntarily pursed, her face filled with disappointment. Just then Lin Chia's voice came. "You take the bed." Lin Chia pointed to the floor beside the bed. "I'll sleep on the floor." Ah, to be young. In his room, Merlin sat cross-legged on the bed wearing his deep blue robe, smiling as he sighed. Just then, a crimson light crept into his left eye, and the whispered voices he had been suppressing surged into his mind like a tide, causing his brows to furrow. He didn't use mental magic to suppress the turmoil in his heart, but instead clenched his fists tightly, took a deep breath, and several star traces flashed through his profound right eye. The red moonlight fell through the window, shining on Merlin's deep blue robe, bathing his body in a bloody hue. He sat there quietly, turning his head slightly as if listening to something. Under the azure sky, a yellow figure rode an electric scooter, leisurely traveling through the clouds. A golden light shot up from the ground toward the sky, wobbling as it followed behind the scooter, and then a voice called out from behind. "Mr. Liu, please stop for a moment." Lu Wei, who had been humming a tune, was startled and looked back to see 4 people and a coffin crowded together on a sword condensed from golden light. The sword swayed up and down in the air, looking as if it might fall at any moment. The weight of 5 people was absolutely overloading for Yao Guang, and if Bailey Fatty hadn't been gritting his teeth to maintain it with his mental power, the sword wouldn't have been able to fly this high. "You are?" Lu Wei asked puzzledly. "Mr. Lu, we are the 5th Special Squad of Desia's Night Watchmen. I am Vice Captain Qingyu." And Qingyu said calmly, carrying the coffin on his back. "Night Curtain? I know of you." Lu Wei slowed down his electric scooter a bit to make it easier for Bailey Fatty to follow, and continued asking, "What do you need from me?" "We'd like to ask you to find someone." And Qingyu said solemnly. "Who?" "Lin Chia." Lu Wei sighed and took out the note that Zui Qing had given him. "This time I've actually taken Zui Qing's commission to find him." Hearing these words, everyone on Yao Guang's eyes immediately lit up. If Lu Wei could find Lin Chia, it meant Qingyu hadn't guessed wrong. Lin Chia and Jialon were both still alive. "We'll go with you." Bailey Fatty immediately spoke up. Lu Wei shook his head. "Even I don't know where this chase will end up. It's too dangerous for you to follow me. Go back and wait for my news." Bai Lipangpang and others exchanged glances and firmly shook their heads. "No, we must go. Our captain is missing. How can we stay at home waiting for news? Let us follow you. Although you're the pinnacle of human capability, you're still just one person. Maybe we can help if we go with you." Lu Wei looked at their hopeful eyes, then glanced at the unstable Yao Guang flying swords beneath their feet. "But you all seem about to fall." "No problem," Bai Lipangpang said through gritted teeth. "If I fall, I can fly back up. Such a small issue won't stop me." And Qingyu pushed his glasses. "If we run out of spiritual power, we can take turns controlling the sword. I can adjust the surrounding airflow to make it easier for you," Shen Qingzhu added immediately. Jiang Er pondered for a moment. "How about I hijack a private plane nearby? Regular electronic devices won't work in the mist, planes can't fly," Chao Yuan reminded. "Oh, then how about I throw away my coffin board to reduce everyone's weight?" Looking at everyone discussing enthusiastically on Yao Guang, Lu Wei sighed helplessly and pulled out 2 yellow ducks from his electric scooter's drawer, tossing them over. "These are the last 2, take them. Keep up with me, I won't wait for you." After speaking, he rode away on his electric scooter without looking back. And Qingyu caught the 2 yellow ducks, paused slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. "Thank you, Mr. Lu." He bowed to the departing Lu Wei. After some discussion, Bai Lipangpang and Chao Yuan put the yellow ducks on their heads. The propellers on top of the ducks started spinning rapidly, lifting their bodies off Yao Guang's surface as they quickly chased after Lu Wei. Although these yellow duck artifacts were amazing, they still consumed a lot of spiritual power. Chao Yuan and Bai Lipangpang had both reached the boundless realm and could sustain flight for long periods, while Qingyu, Jiang Er and Shen Qingzhu had limited spiritual power and could only take turns driving Yao Guang to keep up with the main group. Seeing Bai Lipangpang and Chao Yuan go far ahead, Shen Qingzhu controlled Yao Guang, while turning to look at Qingyu beside him. "Now, can you tell me?" "About what?" Qingyu looked up from trimming his nails. "About Chao Yuan and that black shadow flowing with flames." Shen Qingzhu recalled that world-destroying figure he saw in the fishing village. The situation was urgent then, so he didn't hear Qingyu's explanation, but now with enough time he wanted to know what everything was about. "Oh, that." Qingyu clapped his hands and pondered for a moment. "The story starts from when we were in Japan's human circle, when Jiang Er and I found some video footage." Qingyu told Shen Qingzhu the whole story from beginning to end. After hearing it, Shen Qingzhu was stunned for a long while before coming back to his senses. "So, Chao Yuan is actually a prison, imprisoning the Black King inside him? Once this prison is broken, the Black King will emerge." Shen Qingzhu's brows furrowed tightly. "Does he know about this himself?" "No, S99 told me not to tell him." "You're worried that if he knows about this, he'll be afraid of involving us?" "Yes. I understand, I won't tell either." Shen Qingzhu nodded, then hesitantly asked, "But what if he asks about it?" Qingyu thought seriously for a moment, his lips curling up slightly. "If he asks, we'll say this. Takamagara." Lin Chia, who had just awakened from his sleep, slowly opened his eyes. He stood up, looked at the still sleeping Jelon on the bed and quietly opened the door to walk out. The crimson moon still hung high in the sky, occupying half of it, its eerie red light falling on the devastated land below. Lin Chia's gaze swept across the surroundings, suddenly stopping on some giant beast remains in the distance. At this moment, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Although the gods of Takamagara had perished, their bodies remained. Though only fragments remained, they were still parts of gods and contained some divine power. If these remains were used as sacrifices, would it be possible to perform dimensional summoning again? As soon as this thought arose, Lin Chia's mind became somewhat restless. If this idea was feasible, then this Takamagara covered in corpses would undoubtedly be a huge treasure trove for him. After hesitating for a moment, he walked to the giant beast's remains and slowly reached out to touch the long cold corpse. Just then a hand landed on his shoulder. Lin Chia was startled and turned around to see Merlin, looking haggard, wearing a magic robe, standing quietly behind him. "What are you trying to do?" Merlin raised an eyebrow. Lin Chia explained his thoughts and Merlin shook his head slightly. "Better not do that." "Why?" Lin Chia asked, puzzled. Dimensional summoning magic uses the energy contained in sacrificial offerings to communicate with beings from other dimensions. Merlin pointed at the red-eyed beast corpse on the ground. Although these corpses contain large amounts of energy, their souls have been contaminated by the red moon. If you use them as sacrifices, this red moon's aura will also seep into the magic array when communicating with other dimensions. This way there's a high possibility of touching some forbidden existences. Forbidden existences? Among the many dimensions outside this world, there are always some beings beyond our imagination, and in their eyes, the appearance of such contaminated power is tantamount to provocation. If they are angered, things won't be as simple as finding something to summon and signing a contract. They might directly lock onto this magic array, reach across dimensions to strike and completely annihilate all these sacrifices. And you, as the soul connected to the magic array, would be lucky to just end up as an idiot from the array's backlash. Hearing this, Lin Chia immediately withdrew his outstretched hand, feeling somewhat scared. If Merlin hadn't stopped him, he might have already done it. "Lord Merlin, you don't look well?" Lin Chia noticed Merlin's haggard appearance. "It's nothing, just a bit tired." Merlin waved his hand. He turned to look at the room nearby, changing the subject. "That young girl seems to like you very much." Lin Chia was stunned and after hesitating for a moment nodded, "Yes." "What about you? Do you like her?" Lin Chia fell into silence. "What? You don't even know if you like someone or not?" Merlin raised his eyebrows slightly. Lin Chia looked towards the room, pondered for a long time and took a deep breath. "I do like her, but..." "But what?" "But I'm not sure if this feeling comes from my true heart or is just a false illusion." Lin Chia reached out his hand, pointing to his chest, and sighed helplessly. "Before, she personally thrust Cupid's arrow of love into my heart." "Cupid's arrow of love?" Merlin was stunned, his gaze fell on Lin Chia's chest, his eyes narrowed as he examined it carefully for a long while, and his expression gradually became subtle. "I understand now." Merlin gave Lin Chia a meaningful look, then turned and walked towards the carriage. "Go wake up that young lady, we should continue our journey." Under the red moon, a silver carriage sped through the ruins, its heavy wheels pressing into the ground, leaving deep marks that looked like elegant curves etched into the blood-colored earth, mysterious and rhythmic. "Lord Merlin, why are we back here again?" Lin Chia asked confusedly, looking at the seemingly familiar scenery outside the window. Sitting opposite him, Merlin kept his eyes closed and calmly replied, "Is that so?" "Yes, I think I just saw these buildings." Merlin slowly opened his eyes, the weariness in his brow more pronounced. He rubbed his eyes. "All buildings in Takamagara look similar, you must have been mistaken." Lin Chia was stunned. Just as he was about to say something more, Merlin raised his finger slightly, and the silver carriage slowly came to a stop. "Get off, your gift is inside." Merlin pointed outside the window. Lin Chia turned to look, and on the mountain not far away, a vermilion torii stood quietly on the mountainside, and behind it, a vague golden giant shadow loomed. "What is that?" Lin Chia squinted, trying to make out the complete form of that giant shadow. "You'll know when we get there." Merlin smiled mysteriously, leading Lin Chia and the other person down from the carriage. ascending the white jade steps in the middle of the mountain, heading straight towards the torii on the mountainside. This mountain must be the highest point in all of Takamagara. Lin Chia walked to the front of the vermilion torii and looked back. Under the blood-colored sky, the desolate and broken land stretched endlessly into the distance. Near the horizon he could vaguely see a mountain of corpses piled up. Faintly, Lin Chia could still hear agonized roars coming from the direction of the corpse mountain. Is that the deepest part of Takamagara? Lin Chia stared in that direction for a moment before turning back, following closely behind Merlin as they passed through the vermilion torii. Only then did Lin Chia clearly see the complete form of that golden giant shadow. It was a grand and magnificent golden temple. Though its corners were somewhat broken, it was still the most complete building Lin Chia had seen so far. The gilded roof emanated a sacred aura under the red moon, and wind chimes hung from the temple's eaves, making crisp sounds in the blood-scented breeze. Merlin walked up to the temple, casually waved his hand, and the temple doors automatically opened, revealing the vast space inside. As soon as he entered the temple, Lin Chia froze in place. The interior space of this temple was far larger than it appeared from the outside. A high black dome hung at the top, with stars twinkling within it, seeming as distant as the night sky. In the empty hall, a silver mirror with a broken corner floated silently in mid-air. Countless shining aurora rivers flowed from the mirror surface, interweaving with each other, connecting to the stars in the sky, dreamlike and ethereal. These aurora rivers. Lin Chia's eyes contracted slightly as if remembering something. In his mind he recalled the palace that existed in the clouds within that relic and that mysterious cushion. In Japan's human circle relic, Lin Chia had followed the aurora rivers in the sky and found Baili Pangpang sitting at the end of the river. He clearly remembered that the cushion under Baili Pangpang at that time also flowed with the same aurora rivers. What are these? Lin Chia pointed to the floating aurora rivers. They are faith. Merlin stepped forward, calmly walking through the intersecting aurora rivers. They are the faith that has been continuously born from the human circle over these 50+ years. Lin Chia stood stunned. Faith born from the human circle? His gaze followed Merlin's direction of advance, falling on the mirror floating in the center, continuously flowing with rivers of aurora. So, that is the sacred treasure Yata no Kagami, used by Takamagara to sustain the human circle. Shock appeared on Lin Chia's face as he walked up to the mirror and examined it carefully. The human circle, that perfectly replicated Japan's territory and housed tens of millions of people, was actually within this small mirror. Yata no Kagami's mirror surface is divided into yin and yang. What we see now is its yang side, its yin side is beneath the Japanese seas, reflecting all of Japan. This is the true source of Takamagara's human circle. Merlin continued to explain. The purpose of the human circle's existence is to provide faith, and this temple is the building used to collect and store faith. 50 years ago, after the upheaval in Takamagara, the gods withered away and the human circle was completely abandoned, but the generation of faith was not interrupted. The faith power produced from the human circle over these 50+ years has all been stockpiled here. Merlin reached out his hand, pointing to the twinkling stars above their heads. So that's how it is. Lin Chia was stunned for a while before asking puzzledly, what is faith used for? For gods, faith power has too many uses, the most crucial of which is amplifying their own laws. Amplifying laws? After becoming a god, there are still differences in strength. Using faith power to amplify laws is the fastest shortcut for gods to increase their own power. There's no need to spend a lot of time accumulating and settling. As long as you have vast amounts of faith power, you can easily increase the power of your own laws to terrifying levels. Among the many divine systems that exist in the world today, the vast majority of powerful gods who stand in the first tier of their respective divine systems reach this step by amplifying themselves with vast amounts of faith. This is also why gods like to leave legends in the mortal world, and why divine systems with more cultural foundation tend to be more powerful. Does a larger faith mean a stronger pantheon? Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. Just then, as if remembering something, he asked puzzledly, but in that case the Cthulhu mythos has left almost no faith in the world, and has no foundation to speak of, so why are they so powerful? That's why I say they might not be myths at all. Merlin slowly spoke, his eyes flickering with deep light. None of the existing theoretical systems about deities in today's world apply to them. The truth about the Cthulhu mythos might be the greatest mystery in this world. I have another question. Go ahead. Can faith power amplify prohibitions? Hearing this question, Merlin was slightly taken aback. It seemed he had never considered this aspect before. After careful thought, he nodded. Theoretically, it should be possible. Prohibitions are supernatural phenomena derived from the power of laws, and fundamentally they share the same origin. However, such a situation could never occur in reality. Why? Because prohibitions belong to humans and humans don't have divine qualities, so they can't absorb faith power. If they can't even absorb faith power, amplifying prohibitions is out of the question. Lin Chia's brows immediately furrowed. He clearly remembered that in the Cloud Palace, both his and Bailey Pongpong's prohibitions were amplified by faith power. If it's impossible to absorb faith power without divine qualities, how did they manage to do it? If, and I'm just saying if, there was an item similar to divine qualities that could help absorb faith power, could human prohibitions then be amplified? An item similar to divine qualities? Merlin shook his head. Unless it's a supreme deity, divine qualities cannot be materialized, and unless the deity falls, divine qualities cannot separate from the body. Why are you suddenly asking about these things? Nothing, just asking casually. Lin Chia shrugged. Merlin's explanation only made things more puzzling. Only a supreme deity's divine qualities after their fall could become an item that might help humans amplify prohibitions? That cushion couldn't possibly be a supreme deity's divine qualities, could it? Why is this mirror missing a corner? Jalan walked to the Yata mirror and asked curiously. It was probably accidentally broken by the Kusanagi sword during the Takamagara upheaval. Merlin said calmly, only the Kusanagi sword, said to be able to cut through anything, could cause such damage to the Yata mirror. Cut through anything? Is it that powerful? The Kusanagi sword is the foremost of Japan's 3 sacred treasures. Legend has it that it possesses the power to cut through everything. Even other divine artifacts of the same level can't withstand its strikes. It's the divine artifact with the strongest killing intent in all of Japan. Lin Chia nodded slightly, recalling the sharp gap he had seen on the massive mirror surface at the bottom of Japanese waters, which must have corresponded to the Kusanagi sword's cut. But why is it bleeding? Jalan reached out, pointing to the gap in the corner of the Yata mirror, where streaks of blood red were slowly consuming the surrounding area. That's not blood, it's contamination from the red moon. Merlin explained, after the Yata mirror was broken during the upheaval, a gap formed connecting the inner and outer worlds. The red moon's contamination can seep through this gap. Halfway through speaking, Merlin froze. What's wrong, Sir Merlin? Something's not right. Merlin's eyes fixed intently on the gap, confusion appearing between his brows. The Yata mirror was broken during the Takamagara upheaval. At the red moon's contamination rate, it should have been completely corroded 50-some years ago, along with the human circle inside being completely destroyed. How is it possible that after all these years, only this small corner has been contaminated? Since Merlin's discharge from the hospital, this was the first time Lin Chia had seen such a bewildered expression on his face. His eyes, flickering with star marks, stared intently at the gap in the Yata mirror, yet he couldn't discern the trajectory of fate within it, his brows tightly knitted. Will the red moon's contamination affect the human circle through this gap? Lin Chia carefully recalled for a moment, then shook his head. When I was in the human circle before, I didn't sense any presence of the red moon at all. Could it be that the contamination is seeping through too slowly? Impossible. Merlin pointed at the red tinge at the corner of the mirror. It's spreading very quickly. At this rate, the Yata mirror will be completely corroded within half a year at most. It's not that it's seeping through slowly, but rather that it only began seeping through a month or 2 ago. If I'm not mistaken, something has been blocking the red moon's corrosion of the Yata mirror for the past 50-some years. But it stopped working a month or 2 ago. A month or 2 ago. Wasn't that exactly when they left Japan and returned to Great Xia? Lin Chia lowered his head in thought. His peripheral vision caught sight of a river of aurora flowing slowly past him, and something seemed to occur to him, his gaze slightly focusing. Something that existed for over 50 years but disappeared a month or 2 ago. This timeline seemed to coincide perfectly with when Bailey Pang Pang sat on that cushion. Could there be some inevitable connection between these two things? The moment this thought appeared, a vague line of reasoning flashed like lightning through Lin Chia's mind. Over 50 years ago, Bailey Pang Pang, the mysterious cushion, faith power, all things disarmed, red moon contamination. The future King Fae sent the Nightfall team to Japan, but while other members' time was only frozen for a few months to 2 years, why was only Bailey Pang Pang sent back over 50 years? What kind of connection did Bailey Pang Pang have with that cushion? Why could he hear its call? If the mysterious power that blocked the red moon's corrosion for decades was Bailey Pong Pong's, all things disarmed, amplified by faith, then was the future King Face's purpose in sending Bailey Pang Pang back in time to protect the human circle from being corrupted and ultimately destroyed by the red moon? Why would he do this? Was it purely to save the millions of lives in the human circle? Or was it for something else within the human circle? One thought after another surged through Lin Chia's mind. He could feel that the mysterious veil covering all the unknowns was about to be lifted, that everything was about to be connected, just missing the final crucial piece of the puzzle. Where was this piece of the puzzle? I cannot see through its destiny. Merlin gazed at the gap for a long time and sighed. This entity blocking the red moon's invasion of the Yata mirror has far exceeded the scope of what I can perceive. Well, let's make haste. He turned around and looked at Lin Chia with a solemn gaze. Are you ready? Ready for what? Lin Chia asked, confused. Ready to receive the baptism of faith. Merlin smiled slightly, pointing to the stars twinkling in the black dome. A divine realm's worth of faith power accumulated over 50 years. That is my gift to you. Lin Chia looked up at the flowing Aurora River and the brilliant stars above, unable to control his gaping mouth. This. Lin Chia was completely stunned. It's worth noting that what hung above their heads was the faith accumulated by the gods of Takamagara over half a century. It was the faith offered through daily prayers by millions of people within the human circle. Although compared to those truly ancient and massive realms, this faith might not be as terrifying, it was still an entire nation's foundation. Most importantly, this vast amount of faith wasn't being used by a complete divine realm with its numerous deities, but by one person. But I haven't become a god yet. Lin Chia clearly remembered Merlin saying that only deities with divine authority could amplify themselves through faith power. He was just a human at the boundless realm, so even with such terrifying faith he shouldn't be able to use it. Don't worry, you're not meant to use it now. Merlin smiled and spoke. I'll use a forbidden spell to seal all this faith within your body like a treasury. When you ascend to divinity you can use it freely. At that time, with the support of such a faith treasury, even as a newly ascended deity, you will possess terrifyingly powerful strength. Merlin looked into Lin Chia's eyes and patted his shoulder. What Nyx left you was a path to godhood. What I'm leaving you is a brilliant future after becoming a god. Lord Seven Knight, do you like this gift? Lin Chia remained stunned for a while before coming back to his senses, looking at Merlin with complex emotions. He nodded heavily. I like it, thank you, Uncle Merlin. This was the first time Lin Chia called him Uncle Merlin instead of Lord Merlin. This also meant that Merlin's position in Lin Chia's heart had surpassed that of a normal patient relationship or friendship, becoming like Nyx, a respected and cherished family member. He was expressing his gratitude from the position of a junior. Hearing this form of address, Merlin was slightly startled, and his smile grew even warmer. Although this faith will be sealed within the forbidden spell, it will still flow into your body. This will be a baptism for your physical form and will bring great benefits. However, the process might be difficult to endure. You must remain conscious throughout. Merlin earnestly instructed. All right. Lin Chia nodded. What should I do? Just sit down, the rest, leave it to me. Merlin slowly raised his magic staff, and a gust of wind howled forth from the void, making his deep blue magical robe flutter violently. Star trails crossed through his eyes in mysterious trajectories, and strands of his hair floated up on their own. In the howling wind, he pressed down on his hood with one hand and forcefully struck the ground with his staff in his right hand. Dong! Waves of magical light surged out layer by layer, almost blowing away the distant Jelon. Dense magical lines spread from the base of the staff, as if coming alive, rapidly sketching out a dazzling magic array. The magical tide instantly swept through the entire divine temple. Dark side devouring. In the terrifying magical fluctuations, Merlin opened his lips and slowly chanted obscure syllables with rhythm. As his voice rang out, black and ferocious tentacles grew from the magic array, reaching toward the twinkling stars in the dome. Meanwhile, beneath the seated Lin Chia, a pure white ring gradually opened, enveloping him entirely. The black tentacles danced wildly among the stars, gradually wrapping around the surface of each star. The terrifying faith power flowed through the tentacles into the magic array, causing the array's lines to emit blinding light, like light bulbs about to overload. Then the flowing light in the magic array all poured into the white ring beneath Lin Chia, transforming into white threads that penetrated his body. Lin Chia groaned, his eyes tightly shut. He felt a surging and scorching tide rampaging inside his body. As the faith power frantically poured in, his body swelled up like a balloon. At this moment, Merlin raised his magic staff and struck again. Dong! A dazzling golden magic array quickly spread out. This was the second forbidden spell Merlin activated. Sacred Light Prelude, Caged Bird. 9 consecutive brilliant golden light spears condensed in the center of the magic array, spinning rapidly in the air, transforming into the afterimage of a birdcage that instantly broke through space and crashed into Lin Chia's chest. The tide-like faith power flowed through Lin Chia's body, and under some mysterious force's guidance, simultaneously rushed toward the golden birdcage in his heart. No matter how vast the total amount of faith power was, after entering that small birdcage, it would shrink to dust-like particles and float gently. Lin Chia's eyes remained tightly shut, his brow full of pain, but his form didn't waver at all. Time passed minute by minute, second by second. Under the black tentacles' entanglement, the stars in the sky dimmed one by one, and the Aurora River woven across the sky gradually dried up, finally vanishing into nothingness. The faith power that Takamagara had accumulated for over 50 years was visibly draining away. After the last strand of faith power flowed into the golden bird cage, the scattered dust within the cage gathered together, transforming into a thumb-sized golden caged bird, silently flying within the cage, repeatedly striking against the cage walls but unable to shake them even slightly. A burning birdcage mark emerged from Lin Chia's chest, becoming a golden imprint. Lin Chia's swollen body finally returned to normal, and the pain dissipated like the tide. His barely supported consciousness suddenly relaxed, and he felt an unprecedented fatigue rush into his mind, causing him to faint directly. Jialon, who had been waiting at the entrance, quickly rushed forward and steadily supported his body, gently laying him down on the ground. The countless stars adorning the dome above had all extinguished, and the flowing river of Aurora had vanished without a trace, plunging the temple hall into darkness after losing all light sources. The magic circle beneath Merlin's feet dissipated inch by inch. His figure swayed as he struggled to steady his faltering body, his eyes involuntarily tinged with a layer of blood red. Endless whispers echoed frantically in his mind. His brows tightly knitted, his right hand lightly pressed against his temple as if struggling desperately. After a long while, that trace of red finally gradually faded, and he lowered his hand, unprecedented weariness between his brows. "Uncle Merlin, are you all right?" Jialon, after steadying Lin Chia, asked worriedly upon seeing Merlin's struggling expression in the distance. "I'm fine." Merlin waved his hand, glancing at Lin Chia lying quietly on the ground. "His body is overflowing with faith power and hasn't fully absorbed the seal. Don't move his body carelessly, let him adjust slowly." "Okay." Jialon nodded repeatedly. Merlin took a deep breath, stepped across the hall and pushed open the main door. Creak. The deep, heavy sound of the door opening echoed in the spacious hall. Merlin, wearing a deep blue magic robe, walked to the open space outside the temple, his gaze sweeping the surroundings as if examining something. A moment later he raised his magic staff and 2 magic circles, one purple and one green, quickly traced beneath his feet, interweaving into 2 different mysterious patterns. Inside the temple, Jialon, who was waiting beside Lin Chia, saw this scene and confusion appeared in her eyes. "Uncle Merlin, hasn't the faith power already been sealed? Why are you still drawing magic circles?" Merlin stood in the center of the gradually forming magic circles and smiled. "These are different magic circles. What are they for?" "The green one is to temporarily conceal the aura of faith power. These faith powers being infused into Lord Seven's body will surely enrage the maddened Susanoo to pursue and kill. We need this formation to buy some time. As for the purple one, that's a secret for now. Looking at the smile on Merlin's face, Jialan stuck out her tongue. In front of the temple, misty magical energy dispersed outward. Beside the unconscious Lin Chia, Jialan quietly watched Merlin, while Merlin looked down at the magic circles at his feet, and the atmosphere suddenly grew quiet. Under the red moon, the wind chimes at the temple's eaves tinkled as the breeze passed by. "Young lady," Merlin suddenly spoke. Who exactly are you?" Jialan looked at Merlin, blinking her eyes. "What's wrong?" "It's somewhat embarrassing to say." Merlin sighed helplessly. "These eyes of mine that peer into fate can see through the truth of Takamagara's demise, can see through the cause and effect after timeline disturbances, can see through the game between two divine systems behind this catastrophe. But today suddenly two things appeared that I cannot see through. One is the mysterious being resisting the red moon's pollution for the Yata mirror. The other is you." Merlin raised his head, those eyes flickering with star marks, calmly gazing into Jialan's eyes. "Your fate's trajectory for the past 3 years is clearly visible. But besides that, whether looking forward to predict the future or tracing back thousands of years into the past, it's all chaos. Who exactly are you? What happened in your past?" Black hair tied back with a red cord cascaded down Jialan's back as she looked up at the wind chimes swaying at the eaves, and smiled slightly. "That's also a secret for now." Merlin's expression turned bitter as he shook his head helplessly. For a magician who has pursued truth and knowledge all his life, nothing is more torturous than an unknown puzzle. "How about this? I'll tell you this magic circle's purpose if you tell me about your past." "I won't." "Alright, then let me ask something else." Merlin extended his hand, pointing at the still unconscious Lin Chia. "Why did you approach him?" "Because of love." "I'm asking very seriously." "And I'm answering very seriously. You've lived for over 1,000 years. So what? How could someone who has lived for over 1,000 years so easily fall for a man they've only known briefly?" Merlin said seriously while staring into Jialan's eyes. "I've seen your fate for the past 3 years, from when you met him until now. The time spent together hasn't even been a year. In 1 year's time, even Lin Chia himself hasn't figured out whether he likes you or not. And for someone like you who has lived for over 1,000 years, isn't this just the blink of an eye? Don't tell me this is love at first sight, I don't believe in that. What is your true purpose in approaching him?" Merlin's voice grew increasingly deep as he stared intently at Jialan's eyes. The purple magic circle just completed beneath his feet gradually lit up, strands of electricity coursing through it, terrible magical energy spreading through the air. Jialan's deep blue hanfu fluttered in the surging magical force as she sat quietly beside Lin Chia, her lips slightly pursed. "This is what you really wanted to ask, isn't it?" Jialan spoke softly. "Yes." Merlin replied flatly. "This question you must answer." Jialan's gaze moved from Merlin to the sleeping Lin Chia's face beside her, those pure black pearl-like eyes blinking gently, tenderness flowing between her brows. "I approached him without any purpose, I just want to stay by his side. I waited 2,000 years for him, how could I possibly mean him harm? I know you're wary of me, but there are some things I can't tell you yet. But I can promise, even if the whole world becomes his enemy, I will always stand on his side." Merlin fell silent. He frowned and stared at Jialan for a long while before sighing, the magic circle beneath his feet gradually dimming. "You believe me?" Jialan asked in surprise, seeing Merlin give up so easily. "Even if I don't believe, I have to believe." Merlin shrugged, glancing at the unconscious Lin Chia nearby. "If I really sealed you here, he would definitely go crazy looking for you when he wakes up, and then I'd become the villain who broke up the lovebirds." "He would go crazy looking for me? Really?" "Of course." Merlin raised an eyebrow. "He told me this morning that he likes you." He really said that?" Jialan's body trembled, her cheeks quickly turning red, the calmness in her eyes completely gone, replaced by unprecedented excitement and joy. "Yes, he's just confused about whether these are his own inner feelings or the effects of Cupid's arrow." Merlin waved his hand. "You should explain it to him yourself. The matters between you two still need to be resolved by yourselves. I can only help this much." Ahem. Jialan coughed lightly, suppressing the wild joy in her heart. Sitting properly in the temple, looking at the figure wearing the magic robe before her and sincerely said, "Praise the god of magic." Roar. The angry and frenzied roar exploded like thunder, seemingly wandering rapidly near the temple. Lin Chia suddenly opened his eyes. The crimson moonlight shone through the open doors of the temple, spilling into the dim shrine. He gazed at that red moon in a daze for a long while before slowly sitting up from the ground. He could clearly feel that his body was much lighter than before. Although his muscles hadn't grown, he could sense an unprecedented feeling of power in his movements. His skin was like jade that had been washed, smooth and resilient, as if he were an exquisitely crafted work of art. Suddenly he felt a warm and soft sensation transmitted from his right palm. "You're awake? How do you feel?" Looking in the direction of the voice, he saw Jialon sitting quietly beside him on the doorstep. The hem of her deep blue hanfu spread like a folding fan on the ground, her black hair tied up with a red cord, swaying with the wind chimes outside the door. The red moon hung in the dim sky as Jialon blinked her eyes, holding Lin Chia's hand with concern on her face. "I'm fine, just a bit of a headache." Lin Chia shook his dizzy head. "How long was I unconscious?" 10 minutes. Mei Lin, wearing a magic robe, slowly walked over from the plum forest. After carefully examining Lin Chia for a moment, he nodded with satisfaction. The seal is perfect, but your spirit hasn't fully recovered from the impact of the faith power, so you'll still experience headaches and some dizziness. It's okay, it's not too serious." Lin Chia sat on the ground and took 2 deep breaths. "Is that so?" Mei Lin raised an eyebrow and sat down on the doorstep in front of him. "Then let me test you with a few questions to see if your mind is clear." Lin Chia was stunned. What activation method is used for the final magic node of Yen Yen Fu Tian technique? Ignoring Lin Chia's puzzled gaze, Mei Lin slowly asked the first question. Yen Yen Fu Tian technique was a top-tier destructive forbidden spell recorded in Merlin's grimoire, and all information about these forbidden spells had been engraved in Lin Chia's mind by the mental hospital. He couldn't forget even if he wanted to. After brief contemplation, Lin Chia answered, "Gravity trigger type. When the weight bearing on the magic array's surface reaches the set value, it automatically activates, similar to the principle of an anti-tank mine." Mei Lin nodded slightly and asked the second question. As the strongest single-target lightning damage forbidden spell, what is the maximum kill range of Alfred's Aria? 42 kilometers. Among the sealing forbidden spells, which instant cast spell requires pre-calculating and arranging star trace trajectories to invoke celestial power for sealing? Star Orbit Divine Coffin. Lin Chia answered all 3 questions fluently. The corners of Mei Lin's mouth curved upward slightly as he stood up from the doorstep and patted Lin Chia's shoulder. "Seems your mind is clear. Get in the carriage, it's time for you to leave." Jialon helped Lin Chia stand up from the ground, but hearing the last sentence, Lin Chia froze. "Where to?" "Leave Takamagara." Mei Lin said calmly, "You now know the truth about Takamagara. You've received my gift and the 3 mental magic spells on you will soon expire. It's time for you to go. What about you? Aren't you coming with us? Your journey has ended while mine is just beginning." Mei Lin said with a smile. Lin Chia's brows furrowed tightly. "Where are you going?" "I can't stay by your side forever, Lord Seven Knight. That would only hinder your growth." Mei Lin's voice was extremely gentle. After Lord Nyx left, she chose to return to Olympus for revenge, and I also have something I must pursue. "What?" "Truth and reality." Lin Chia thought for a moment. Is it still about the nature of the world? Lin Chia clearly remembered that the reason Mei Lin entered the god's mental hospital was because he pursued the truth of the world, then accidentally entered some alternate dimension and had his mind occupied by some entity. Mei Lin sighed. "I must admit that I still can't reach the answer to that puzzle. What I want to investigate is another mystery, one that has existed in the world for countless years, yet no one has uncovered its truth." Mei Lin raised his hand, pointing at the crimson blood moon above. "You're going to investigate the origin of the Cthulhu mythos?" Lin Chia asked in shock. Mei Lin nodded, his eyes gently closed and 2 faint magical lights dissipated. When they opened again, his eyes were completely red. Lin Chia's heart trembled slightly. The appearance of Mei Lin before him was so similar to Qin Yangrong, whom he had seen inside the whale's body in the deep sea. Those blood-red eyes reflected the image of the red moon, full of ferocity and pain. The difference was that Mei Lin's expression was completely calm, without Qin Yangrong's fanaticism and insanity. "You've been contaminated by the red moon?" "I let it contaminate me voluntarily. To approach the truth, one must listen to their voices." Mei Lin pointed to his ears. "Now I think I've heard something." But before Lin Chia could say more, Mei Lin interrupted him with a smile. "Don't worry, I'll be fine. I am the great god of magic and prophecy, Merlin." Looking at Mei Lin's confident and sparkling eyes, Lin Chia opened his mouth but still didn't say anything more. Mei Lin waved lightly and several ghost-white horses pulling a silver carriage came before Lin Chia and Jialon. Mei Lin opened the carriage door, removed his hood with his right hand and placed it on his chest, bowing slightly like a gentleman. "Lord Seven Knight, let us part ways here. Fate will arrange for us to meet again someday." Lin Chia sighed, put one foot on the carriage but after hesitating for a moment withdrew it. "Uncle Merlin, even if you want to pursue the truth of Cthulhu, shouldn't you leave Takamagara first?" "I have some small matters to handle, then I'll leave," Mei Lin said with a smile. "If you stay here you might get caught up in it." "I understand." Lin Chia faced Mei Lin and after a moment of silence bowed deeply. "Uncle Merlin, safe travels." Lin Chia led Jialon onto the silver carriage. Mei Lin closed the door, lightly tapped his knuckles on the carriage, and the ghost-white horses began galloping rapidly, pulling the carriage until it disappeared from view. After the two had gone far away, the smile gradually disappeared from Mei Lin's face, replaced by unprecedented gravity. The moment the carriage drove beyond the concealing magic array, another roar exploded. Roar. That roar rapidly approached from the distance. Blood-colored dust flew everywhere, killing intent as vast as the sea swept forth, heading straight for the departing silver carriage. Mei Lin's eyes narrowed as he raised the magic array in his hand, his figure turning into an afterimage as he rushed to block the direction of the roar. The silver carriage raced under the red moon, like a streak of lightning, moving at an incredible speed. Lin Chia felt the scenery outside the window rapidly receding. At this moment, it seemed he wasn't sitting in a carriage but rather a supersonic fighter jet skimming the ground. The speed was completely different from when Merlin was driving earlier. Lin Chia's heart sank instantly. The carriage had been pushed to its absolute limit, indicating that Merlin was making his utmost effort to get him away from this place. This indirectly suggested that an absolute crisis was approaching. However, where was this crisis coming from? Why was Merlin so urgently sending them away? Roar. The furious roar rapidly approached from afar, terrifying killing intent like surging waves followed the road the carriage had taken, quickly closing in on them. Lin Chia was slightly startled. This voice was certainly familiar to Lin Chia. Since entering the shrine, Susanu's roars had become increasingly powerful, but what he hadn't expected was that the other party would actively leave the depths of Takamagara to charge here. His target was this carriage? Is it me? Lin Chia's pupils suddenly contracted as he realized something. Is Susanu targeting me because I absorbed all the faith power from Takamagara? They had been in Takamagara for almost a day, but Susanu, who was in the deepest part, hadn't moved a step. Yet why did he frantically pursue them as soon as they left the shrine? There was only one answer. He came to kill Lin Chia. Under the Red Moon's corruption, Susanu had nearly gone mad. Now seeing all the faith power that the gods of Takamagara had accumulated over decades being absorbed by a human, he was probably furious enough to explode. So when Merlin said he had something to take care of, he meant. Under the blood-red sky, a blood-stained figure in divine robes flew through the air. He wielded a sword emanating silver light, his massive body casting large shadows on the broken ground below. In the red moonlight, those blood-red eyes were terrifyingly fierce as he fixedly stared at the silver carriage speeding away on the horizon, his killing intent surging like the sea. Just then, a brilliant magic array that covered the sky suddenly opened. Dense black lightning surged between the arrays, like a black thorny forest, wildly dancing down from the sky. Boom! Susanu's form was struck down from the sky to the ground by the dense lightning. Black lightning crawled across the broken ground like snakes, engulfing Susanu's form. A white array opened in the sky, and a figure wearing a deep blue magic robe with a large hood emerged from it. Those red eyes calmly gazed at the sea of black light below. "I won't let you chase after them." Starlight flickered in Merlin's eyes as he raised his staff. Two identical Merlins walked out from his body, one wearing a black robe, one wearing a white robe. The three Merlins stood side by side in the sky. Beneath their feet, three brilliant magic arrays were simultaneously drawn out, like overlapping rings in different dimensions, slowly rotating. The center of the magic arrays precisely targeted Susanoo, who had been struck to the ground. Ancient and obscure triple incantations echoed between heaven and earth, sometimes passionate, sometimes low. Just then, a brilliant sword light slashed out from the sea of black lightning, instantly cutting through all the lightning. Susanoo, wielding the Kusanagi sword, roared as he shot up from the ground. "Kill! Kill!" Only endless fury remained in Susanoo's blood-red eyes. "Kill, kill, kill!" He raised the sword in his hand. Whoosh! His Kusanagi sword slashed out instantly, directly shattering the bottommost magic array. The broken magical power scattered in the air. A sword mark flashed through the white-robed Merlin's body, instantly cutting him into pieces that disappeared without a trace. His form rapidly charged toward the second overlapping magic array in the sky. Completely lost his mind and become a follower of Cthulhu. The Merlin in the deep blue magic robe narrowed his eyes as the fierce wind made his robes flutter loudly. Susanoo's form rapidly ascended, coming directly before the black-robed Merlin's magic array. In an instant, the black-robed Merlin's magic array was fully activated, and hideous black tentacles extended from it, like a giant man-eating flower, wrapping around Susanoo's body. These tentacles violently writhed after swallowing Susanoo, like the stomach of a giant beast digesting food. Suddenly, all the tentacles stiffened, then a dazzling sword light drew an arc, shattering all the tentacles. The maddened Susanoo stepped out from the countless pieces of flesh, and his Kusanagi sword slashed toward the magic array above. The magic array shattered piece by piece, and the black-robed Merlin's form was similarly cut into pieces. At the same time, the original Merlin's incantation finally ended. Brilliant magical light rippled outward from him, and circles of dazzling golden light condensed from the void, floating around Susanoo, repeatedly striking him down into the dust, like a golden tower pressing him to the ground. Holy Light Chapter 3, Demon Suppressing Ring. Merlin stood above the golden magic array, looking down at the sealed and suppressed Susanoo, shaking his head helplessly. "The person destined to kill you isn't me. Even if I wanted to kill you, I couldn't." Merlin's eyes had seen through Susanoo's fate. Since Susanoo was destined to die by that person's hands, no matter what methods Merlin used, there would be unstoppable forces appearing to prevent it from happening. All he could do was seal Susanoo to buy time for Lin Chia and Kaelin to escape. Merlin raised his staff and began chanting again. Powerful sealing magic opened before him, gradually taking shape. Just then, the red moon in the sky suddenly became blurry. The hazy moon image split into two like an afterimage, slowly separating. Dense blood color covered the surface of the two red moons, like a pair of blood-red eyes glaring angrily, coldly looking down at the ground below. A second red moon. Merlin's pupils suddenly contracted when he saw the anomaly in the sky. In an instant, a flash of insight crossed his mind. A deeply hidden fate trajectory appeared in his perception. As if understanding something, he stared fixedly at the second red moon that had emerged as an afterimage in the sky, and spoke word by word. Tsukuyami. Two moons in the sky, a crimson hue spreading. Countless whispers exploded in the ears of Merlin and Susanoo, like thousands of silver needles piercing their consciousness and spirit, leaving their minds riddled with holes. Merlin's pupils contracted slightly, his once clear eyes becoming clouded. His brows furrowed as he covered his ears with both hands as if struggling. The corruption of the red moon takes time to erode one's mind. Even though Merlin actively dispelled his mental magic, exposing himself to the corruption, his willpower and wisdom still allowed him to maintain his rationality while listening to the whispers. However, the simultaneous appearance of two red moons, coupled with the mental fatigue from using powerful forbidden spells throughout the day, made his consciousness begin to blur. He had to use all his rationality to fight against the corruption to prevent the two red moons from completely taking over his body. Roar. Susanoo, pinned under the demon-suppressing ring, his eyes blood-red, suddenly let out a roar as divine power surged through his body. In the distance, the crimson ocean began to boil. Several hundred-meter-thick water columns shot into the sky, transforming into blood-colored serpent heads, dancing wildly under the twin moons before crashing heavily onto the surface of the demon-suppressing ring. A dull thunderous sound echoed through the heavens and earth. Boom boom boom. Under the continuous impact of the blood sea serpent heads, a crack appeared on the surface of the demon-suppressing ring. He glared with his frenzied blood-red eyes and suddenly raised the Kusanagi sword in his hand. The blade of Kusanagi easily cut through the demon-suppressing ring, the golden light shattering inch by inch. The magical array's backlash made Merlin's face pale, and the redness in his eyes intensified slightly. Merlin's usually calm mind was stirred with waves of turmoil, his expression becoming unsightly. Damn, this sword is too troublesome. The Kusanagi sword, capable of cutting through all things, rendered even Merlin's sealing forbidden spells largely ineffective. The demon-suppressing ring was among the top-tier sealing forbidden spells he possessed, yet it was still forcibly broken when the opportunity arose. Without dealing with this sword, Susanoo's combat power would be incomparably terrifying. Susanoo's figure rose from the shattered golden light, his enraged eyes looking in the direction where the carriage had departed. He raised the Kusanagi sword once again, releasing a surge of killing intent. This is bad. Merlin, as if realizing something, quickly flashed away, instantly opening layer upon layer of instant magic arrays in front of Susanoo. Susanoo ignored these magic arrays as if they weren't there, channeling all his power into his right arm, and suddenly threw the Kusanagi sword toward the direction where the carriage had departed. The Kusanagi sword transformed into a dazzling white light, instantly piercing through the void. The blade's rapid cutting through the air produced deafening sonic booms, invisible shockwaves destroying all buildings and ground in its path. Where the blade went, destruction followed. The instant magic arrays in Kusanagi's path were torn apart like paper, but the next moment, dozens of new instant magic arrays would appear to block the sword's path. Merlin, his eyes blood-red, barely stabilized his stance, his right hand's magic staff frantically flickering with light, creating instant magic spells at an astounding speed every second. In less than 3 seconds, Merlin had instantly created 3,333 magic arrays, forming a corridor of intersecting magical light barriers in front of that sword shadow. But the time was too short. Each instant magic array could only slightly weaken the sword's power. The Kusanagi sword continued to pierce through one magic array after another with unstoppable momentum, disappearing beyond the horizon in the blink of an eye. The silver carriage raced across the shattered ground. Uncle Merlin. The roar of explosions came from the distance. Lin Chia frowned as he looked in that direction, quickly standing up from his seat and reaching to open the carriage door. His hand stopped in midair. Lin Chia stood there, his eyes full of struggle. After a moment, he sighed and sat back down, his hands tightly clenched on his knees until his knuckles turned white. Before this, he hadn't realized that when Merlin said he had some small matter to attend to, he meant holding back Susanoo's pursuit. But now everything was set in motion, and if he made any rash moves at this point, it would only cause more trouble for Merlin. A soft hand gently gripped Lin Chia's clenched fist, and Jialon's voice came from beside him. "Don't worry, Uncle Merlin will be fine. He is the great god of magic and prophecy." Lin Chia turned to look at Jialon's pure eyes, and after a moment of silence, nodded. Lin Chia took a deep breath, about to say something when suddenly a strange sense of agitation welled up in his heart. The 3 mental magic spells Merlin had left in his body suddenly began to fluctuate violently. Has the magic failed to suppress the Red Moon's corruption? Lin Chia was slightly startled and suddenly looked up at the sky. At some point, a second red moon had appeared, both moons emitting an unsettling red light, mysterious and eerie. 2 red moons. Lin Chia muttered to himself. Earth only has 1 moon, this is indisputable, so why were there 2 red moons in the sky above Takamagara? If the original red moon was formed by the corruption of the Cthulhu gods on the moon, then what was the second red moon? While Lin Chia was deep in thought, outside the carriage on the desolate ground, several red-eyed corpse beasts noticed the rapidly moving carriage. Operating purely on instinct, they immediately let out a roar and charged forward one after another. The silver carriage streaked across the ground like lightning, heading straight for the gate of summoning. It was moving too fast. None of the corpse beasts it had attracted could touch the carriage itself, at most only trailing far behind like a black wave, roaring as they surged forward. Lin Chia saw this scene through the carriage and frowned slightly. He looked back in the direction the carriage was heading, where the enormous gate of summoning was now within reach, no more than 2 kilometers away. For the silver carriage, this distance was but a moment's journey. The wave of corpse beasts behind them couldn't possibly catch up. Lin Chia let out a slight sigh of relief. Just then, as if sensing something, he suddenly turned to look behind the wave of corpse beasts, where a white sword light was breaking through layer after layer of magic arrays like lightning, shooting rapidly toward them. The blade that could cut through all things instantly shredded the bodies of over a dozen corpse beasts into pieces scattered through the air. These beasts, which could match Klein-level beings, didn't even have time to let out a cry before dissolving into the air. Cutting a bloody path through the wave of corpse beasts, its speed showed no signs of slowing. Terrifying sonic booms crossed the sky as the cold sword light carried overwhelming killing intent, aimed directly at the silver carriage. This was the ultimate strike of Japan's last deity. This was Takamagara's supreme weapon of destruction. The Kusanagi sword.